Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, we are rejoined on the Malzberg panel by Ron Christie and Peter Morici. And gentlemen, Ron, it wasn't too many weeks ago that Jeb Bush made a statement about those who come here illegally are, in many cases, committing an act of love. And I asked you if you thought that would harm his chances to win a Republican nomination. You said, I think the quote was that he just torpedoed those chances. Having said that, George W. Bush, your former employer, just weighed in today and said my brother would make a great president. I haven't talked to him. He's traveling. But, we will sit down eventually, my little brother and I, and talk about it. There are polls out now that in the state of Florida, he leads Rand Paul and Marco Rubio in that order, but he loses to Hillary Clinton in Florida. It's neck and neck. So what do you see 2 weeks or 3 weeks removed from that statement and your statement about that statement? Where are you now on Jeb Bush?
I think the submarine's still out, and I think the torpedo's still in the tube. I just don't see it happening. I think he's gonna. I think his public statement is he's gonna wait till the end of the year. He's gonna make his determination. But I think there are a lot of fiscal conservatives and a lot of Tea Party patriots around the country who look at him and say, "Oh, immigration, it's a matter of love." No, what about the terrorists who want to come in this country? Why can't this government solve the problem of sealing the border? They haven't done it, and I think Governor Bush's comments are going to get a lot of conservative angst.
Peter?
I think that's right. I think he's actually correct in what he says. I think that families act in ways that are inconsistent with the law because it's a family thing. And what he says may be correct, but it's not going to sell well in South Carolina. That's all there is to it. It's just not going to go well for him in any of the southern primaries. More than that, I mean, if he's got trouble winning Florida, can you imagine how much trouble he's going to have with Virginia in a general election? When Mr. Bush was running for re-election and for election, Florida was it. If you win Florida, your Republican becomes president. Right. But now the issue of winning Florida is just the beginning. You have to win in Virginia and Iowa to have a shot, and those have become increasingly difficult. The things that he said may strengthen him in Virginia and Iowa, but won't get him through the primary process.
Yeah. All right, I want to move on to, I want you guys to hear a cut from Congressman Bernie Thompson, Democrat, of course, from Mississippi. And he calls Clarence Thomas an Uncle Tom. He's talking to something new Black Panther Radio or whatever that's called. And listen to this exchange here.
Like the Supreme Court, Sotomayor, the Chief Justice Sotomayor, one of the Supreme Court justices, she told him just like it is.
That's right.
Sitting up there pretending that now racism don't exist.
And there's Clarence Thomas.
Oh, y'all, brother. Oh, brother. You said that, I didn't.
Yeah.
All right, and again, it's telling that the new Black Panther guy has to disavow that comment and say to the congressman, "You said that, I didn't." Ron. I mean, and he goes on. He called McConnell a racist, and it goes on. Any opposition to no president's ever been treated the way Obama's been treated. I guess he never saw the treatment of George W. Bush, what they called him, the protests in the streets. What do you make of this kind of, in my view, racism?
Well, I've been writing about this a lot in the Daily Beast in my column, Steve, and I have to tell you that the race card is maxed out in my view. The Democrats have recognized that they don't have an economy to run on. The revised first quarter is 0.01% growth. So they have to take to trying to use race as a method of silencing their political opponents when they actually have nothing to say. I think it's despicable. I think this Congress, this Democratic congressman, along with many in the administration, have done more to harm race relations in this country than we've seen in decades by pulling out the sorry and tired trick of trying to accuse their political opponents of racism. I think is only dividing our country, not bringing us closer together.
Peter?
This is their strategy. I wrote a column on this a week ago or so, where I said basically the administration strategy is to manufacture injustices. It's trying to convince women that men are conspiring against them and that we need more federal legislation, indeed direct federal regulation of every single workplace to redress discrimination against women. With the minimum wage, $10.10 an hour is a ridiculous number, and by anybody who's done the math. And yet it's a great way of playing the class card. And they're playing the race card as well. They're playing it on an increasing basis simply because Well, in the case of Attorney General Holder, he doesn't know how to do his job. For example, there were several articles about him recently not figuring out how to prosecute banks in New York. It's not hard to prosecute banks in New York. You do what George Bush did. You go after the bankers, not the banks. And you get the guys that did the cheating and you throw them in jail, as they did after the savings and loan crisis in the first Bush administration. They booted 800 people into jail. This administration can't get that done because Eric Holder doesn't know how to do anything but yell race.
Ron, summing up here in less than a minute, whatever they're doing on the left and whatever Obama's doing in all these themes, they're not working. Look at the polls that have come out about his approval rating and on the various issues.
They're not working. They're going to try to divide the country on race, class, and gender, as Peter accurately said. And I think ultimately, and you look at the Harvard Institute of Politics poll that just came out.
The young vote.
The young voters are disillusioned with this president's leadership, and I honestly think this is going to be an ugly and divisive time between now and the November election. More of the same coming from this administration.
All right, gentlemen, I appreciate it. As always, Ron Christie, read him at the Daily Beast, and also former, of course, assistant to President George W. Bush. Peter Morici, a economist and a professor at the University of Maryland, and Newsmax contributor who stuck around for part 2 this time. Very good. I'm very happy. Gentlemen, we'll see both of you very, very soon. I appreciate it very, very much. All right, folks, we are coming back, and we're going to be joined by Larry Kudlow, CNBC's chief contributor and also the host of the Larry Kudlow radio show. We'll talk about the economy and regulations and how it's killing the economy. Don't go away.